Hello everyone, and welcome to today's topic, Designing with Nature, Principles and Patterns. In this session, we explore how ecological knowledge, human well-being, and urban resilience can be integrated to shape sustainable cities. The idea of designing with nature has evolved over the last 50 years, developing from an environmental ethos into a planning approach grounded in scientific evidence and interdisciplinary practice. Today, we will focus on what designing with nature means and how it reshapes the way cities respond to climate change, urbanization, and social complexity. By the end, I hope you will see nature not as a backdrop but as an active and essential component of urban design. This lecture progresses from foundational concepts to applied frameworks. We begin with the origins of designing with nature and its influence on regenerative planning. Next, we cover nature-based planning, followed by principles and patterns of biophilic design. We then examine human-nature interactions, blue-green networks, blue-green infrastructure, and their environmental and social benefits. An introduction to urban metabolism helps us understand how resource flows shape cities. International case examples connect these concepts to practice. The lecture concludes with a synthesis preparing us for the next topic. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to define the concept of designing with nature and explain how ecological processes guide sustainable urban form. Identify key principles of biophilic design and recognize the structural patterns that form effective blue-green infrastructure. You will understand how urban metabolism, the flows of energy, water, and materials, shapes ecological design strategies. Recognize the role of nature-based solutions, NBS, in enhancing climate resilience and delivering multifunctional benefits. Most importantly, you will see how biophilic design, blue-green networks, and urban metabolism can be combined into an integrated framework for urban resilience. Designing with nature is rooted in a simple but transformative idea. Cities function best when they align with, rather than work against, natural processes. This concept was articulated most famously by Ian McHarg in his 1969 work Design with Nature, where he proposed the use of ecological layers, soil, hydrology, vegetation, slope, climate, to guide land use decisions. McHarg's work was revolutionary because it provided a systematic method for integrating ecological knowledge into planning practice, long before digital spatial tools made such analysis straightforward. Today, the idea has grown beyond its original formulation, shaping the emergence of regenerative design, ecological urbanism, and nature-based planning. Designing with nature implies more than creating green spaces. It means understanding natural systems as dynamic, interconnected forces that sustain life in cities. It encourages planners, architects, and designers to adopt long-term thinking, to anticipate change rather than resisting it, and to work toward cities that enhance ecological performance rather than diminish it. This shift from environmental protection to ecological integration is central to contemporary approaches to urban resilience. Nature-based planning builds upon the conceptual foundations established by McHarg but updates them for a world facing climate extremes, biodiversity collapse, and increasingly complex social needs. It is an approach grounded in nature-based solutions, NBS, which leverage ecosystem functions to address societal challenges. NBS are inherently multifunctional. A single project, such as a restored river corridor, can reduce flood risk, enhance biodiversity, improve microclimate, provide recreation, encourage walking and cycling, and support cultural heritage. This multifunctionality is essential in urban environments where space is limited and land use pressures are high. Nature-based planning requires planners to think in systems, recognizing that land, water, vegetation, climate, and community well-being are interdependent. It demands collaboration across sectors, urban planning, landscape architecture, ecology, hydrology, transportation, and public health, and challenges governance structures that divide responsibilities into isolated silos. Although nature-based planning has strong scientific grounding, its implementation requires institutional commitment, policy alignment, and participatory governance to overcome administrative fragmentation and ensure long-term maintenance. When these conditions are met, nature-based actions can significantly enhance urban resilience and quality of life. The importance of nature in cities extends far beyond aesthetics. Research in environmental psychology, neuroscience, and public health shows that humans have a deep biological need for contact with nature. This concept, biophilia, suggests that our physical and cognitive systems are adapted to environments rich in natural stimuli such as vegetation, water, natural light, and biodiversity. Urban environments, however, often replace these stimuli with artificial materials, monotonous forms, and overstimulating sensory conditions. As a result, residents may experience higher stress levels, reduced cognitive performance, and diminished emotional well-being. Urban nature offers restorative experiences that help individuals recover from mental fatigue, regulate physiological stress responses, and enhance overall health. Even minimal exposure, like viewing tree canopies from a window or having indoor plants, can produce measurable benefits. At the community scale, access to green space supports physical activity, social cohesion, environmental learning, and public health. In a warming climate, shaded and vegetated areas reduce heat exposure, contributing to climate justice by protecting vulnerable populations. Integrating nature into urban design is therefore both a public health strategy and a resilience measure. Biophilic design provides a conceptual and practical framework for bringing the benefits of nature into built environments. It is guided by a series of principles that center on meaningful, consistent, and ecologically responsible human-nature relationships. The first principle is direct experience of nature, which includes visual and physical contact with plants, water, animals, sunlight, and weather patterns. The second principle is indirect experience of nature, achieved through natural materials, textures, forms, colors, and imagery that evoke natural environments without replicating them literally. The third principle concerns experience of place, which emphasizes cultural and ecological attachment to local landscapes, fostering emotional connection and identity. These principles help designers move beyond superficial greenery toward integrated systems where vegetation, materials, spatial layouts, and building performance work together to support well-being. Biophilic design aligns naturally with regenerative thinking, encouraging interventions that enhance ecological health rather than depleting it. When effectively implemented, biophilic environments can improve air quality, enhance acoustic comfort, reduce stress, increase productivity, support inclusive design, and promote a stronger sense of belonging and community. Biophilic design is operationalized through a set of 14 patterns classified into 3 groups: nature in the space, natural analogs, and nature of the space. These patterns describe how specific design elements support human psychological and physiological benefits. Nature in the space includes direct connections to elements such as vegetation, water, animals, natural light, and fresh air. Natural analogs encompass designs that reference natural forms or processes through biomorphic patterns, natural materials, or organic shapes. Nature of the space addresses spatial configurations that align with human evolutionary preferences, such as prospect, expansive views, refuge, protected zones, mystery, partially obscured views that invite exploration, and risk, peril, controlled exposure to challenge or excitement. Although these patterns are well documented, they are not equally represented in practice. Institutional preferences and safety requirements often favor predictable, low-risk designs, making patterns like mystery or risk less common. Nevertheless, each pattern offers valuable insights into how built environments can evoke emotional responses, stimulate curiosity, and restore cognitive balance. When applied thoughtfully, these patterns help designers create rich, multi-sensory environments that mirror the complexity and dynamism of natural ecosystems. Human interactions with nature in urban contexts involve more than passive observation. They are fundamentally multi-sensory and experiential. While visual exposure is crucial, other senses, sound, smell, touch, thermal sensations, and even air movement, play essential roles in shaping our perception and emotional response. For instance, the sound of rustling leaves, the feel of natural materials like wood or stone, the scent of vegetation, or the gentle variation of temperature in shaded areas all contribute to a restorative experience. In dense urban environments, where access to real nature may be limited, symbolic or digital representations can also evoke psychological benefits. These might include projected landscapes, soundscapes, or stylized patterns inspired by nature. Importantly, nature-inclusive design must consider accessibility and inclusivity, ensuring that people of all ages, abilities, and cultural backgrounds can benefit. This may involve creating safe, welcoming, and clearly navigable green spaces, incorporating sensory cues for diverse users, and ensuring that public spaces foster social interaction and community connection. When integrated into broader planning, multi-sensory nature experiences enrich everyday urban life and improve mental health and resilience. Blue-green networks form the ecological backbone of climate-adapted cities. They integrate vegetation and water systems into a continuous network, allowing ecological processes to flow through the urban fabric. Unlike traditional green spaces or isolated water features, blue-green networks intentionally connect parks, rivers, wetlands, green roofs, stormwater infrastructure, and street corridors into a unified system. These networks provide essential ecosystem services, managing stormwater, enhancing biodiversity, reducing heat stress, and improving air quality, while also offering recreational and aesthetic benefits. The idea is to treat water and vegetation not as separate elements but as interdependent systems with synergistic functions. For example, vegetation slows and filters stormwater, while water supports plant growth and microclimate cooling. Blue-green networks also enhance ecological connectivity, creating corridors for wildlife and supporting more resilient urban ecosystems. This integrated approach is crucial for cities facing increased precipitation extremes, flooding risks, and rising temperatures under climate change. Blue-green infrastructure consists of a combination of natural, semi-natural, and engineered systems designed to deliver environmental and social benefits. Green elements include parks, forests, street trees, meadows, ecological corridors, green roofs, and living walls. Blue elements consist of rivers, lakes, wetlands, ponds, and engineered water systems like retention basins and constructed wetlands. Hybrid systems, such as rain gardens, bioswales, permeable pavements, and detention landscapes, are particularly valuable because they manage stormwater while providing ecological functions and social amenities. Designing effective BGI requires understanding hydrological cycles, soil permeability, vegetation suitability, and microclimatic dynamics. It also requires careful spatial planning to ensure that elements are connected and accessible. Well-designed BGI supports active mobility by integrating with pedestrian and cycling networks, enhances neighborhood identity, and contributes to equitable access to ecosystem services. Importantly, maintenance and long-term monitoring are integral to BGI success, requiring interdisciplinary coordination and strong community engagement. Connected blue-green infrastructure provides a wide array of benefits across social, environmental, and economic domains. Hydrologically, BGI reduces flood risk by slowing, absorbing, and filtering stormwater, lowering pressure on gray infrastructure and decreasing sewer overflow events. Vegetation cools urban areas through evapotranspiration, mitigating the urban heat island effect and protecting vulnerable populations during heat waves. Ecologically, connected BGI creates habitats for pollinators, birds, and other wildlife, increasing biodiversity and strengthening ecological resilience. Socially, BGI offers accessible recreational areas, improves neighborhood aesthetics, and supports mental and physical health. Economically, it can reduce energy consumption, raise property values, and generate long-term savings by limiting costly gray infrastructure upgrades. Overall, blue-green networks act as urban insurance, helping cities manage climate risks while creating healthy, vibrant environments. Urban metabolism, conceptualizes cities as living systems that consume, circulate, and produce resources. These flows include energy, water, food, building materials, goods, and waste. In this metabolic metaphor, cities operate as organisms whose internal processes shape environmental performance. Developed in the mid-20th century to quantify resource inputs and outputs, now serves as a key framework for evaluating sustainability at municipal and regional scales. It identifies where energy is lost, where materials accumulate, and how waste streams can be reused, supporting transitions toward circular economies. Also strengthens nature-based planning by exposing the limitations of linear systems and revealing regenerative opportunities. For example, organic waste can become compost for urban agriculture, stormwater can be captured and reused, and excess industrial heat can supply district heating. Understanding urban metabolism enables planners to design cities aligned with natural cycles rather than disrupting them. Understanding the flows of energy, materials, and water is essential for interpreting how cities function within an urban metabolism framework. Metabolic analysis tracks these resource inputs and outputs through a systematic accounting process, helping us see where consumption is concentrated and how it shapes a city's environmental footprint. However, traditional ways of presenting metabolic data, often through static charts or simplified diagrams, rarely reveal the spatial patterns behind these flows. This limits their usefulness for planners who need to understand where resource pressures occur in order to design effective interventions. To address this gap, urban metabolism models are increasingly being linked with digital twin platforms. Digital twins provide a dynamic, spatially explicit environment that allows metabolic data to be visualized, monitored, and tested in real time. This integration turns abstract resource accounting into a practical tool for guiding urban planning and design decisions, and it forms a natural bridge to the following discussion on how nature-based systems support urban resilience. Urban resilience refers to a city's capacity to withstand shocks, such as floods, heat waves, or economic disruptions, and to adapt or transform in response to long-term stressors. Nature-based design plays a crucial role in building resilience because natural systems inherently provide redundancy, flexibility, and adaptive capacity. For example, wetlands store and filter stormwater more effectively than rigid drainage systems, and vegetation offers cooling benefits without energy input. Blue-green infrastructure reduces vulnerability to climate extremes by integrating ecological processes into urban systems, making cities more adaptable and less dependent on mechanical solutions. Social resilience also gains from nature-based design. Green public spaces support community cohesion, which is vital for mutual aid during crises. When paired with participatory planning and transparent governance, nature-based strategies foster place attachment and community ownership. Ultimately, nature-based resilience is not only about reacting to hazards but creating adaptive systems that improve over time, aligning closely with regenerative principles that restore ecological health while supporting social well-being. Integrating ecology into urban form requires a multi-scalar and interdisciplinary approach. At the regional scale, planners must consider larger ecological networks, such as river basins, watersheds, and wildlife corridors, and ensure that development does not disrupt these systems. At the city scale, this involves designing street networks, open spaces, and infrastructure that maintain ecological flow and connectivity. At the site scale, ecological integration requires careful design of vegetation, soil systems, hydrology, microclimate, and human use patterns. Achieving this integration demands collaboration among ecologists, landscape architects, hydrologists, transportation engineers, and social scientists. Digital tools such as geodesign and parametric modeling allow testing of alternative scenarios, prediction of ecological outcomes, and optimization of spatial configurations. Equally important is community participation, which helps define local ecological priorities, ensures design suitability, and supports long-term stewardship. When ecology is fully embedded in urban form, cities become more adaptable, livable, and resilient. Nature-inclusive design appears not only in large-scale projects but also in everyday urban interventions. Green roofs and living walls improve thermal performance, enhance biodiversity, and support stormwater management. Street trees shade pedestrian paths, improve comfort, reduce energy demand, and create ecological corridors. Rain gardens and bioswales manage runoff, filter pollutants, and strengthen soil health. Pocket parks and community gardens provide accessible nature within walking distance, especially important in dense neighborhoods. Buildings designed with daylighting, natural ventilation, and biomorphic materials create healthier indoor environments. These small-scale examples, when implemented across a city, contribute to a cumulative effect, expanding ecological functions, enhancing urban aesthetics, and improving well-being for residents. They demonstrate that nature-based design is not limited to flagship projects but can be embedded in everyday life. Vienna offers a leading example of how a city can institutionalize blue-green infrastructure within an urban policy framework. The Vienna Green and Blue Infrastructure Strategy integrates nature-based design into the city's climate adaptation plan, urban development guidelines, and mobility strategies. The city promotes green roofs, living facades, permeable surfaces, urban tree networks, and river restoration. These interventions have measurable impacts. They reduce urban temperatures, lower energy demand, and improve stormwater management. The strategy demonstrates that integrated ecological planning generates economic benefits, including lower maintenance costs and increased property value. Vienna's approach is highly participatory. Community engagement and multi-stakeholder governance ensure that interventions suit local needs. The Vienna model shows that BGI becomes most effective when embedded into planning regulations and supported by long-term political commitment. Following the 2010-2011 earthquakes, Christchurch used ecological principles to guide urban recovery. The Central Recovery Plan introduced the Frame, a network of green spaces encircling the central business district, designed to provide flexibility for future land use, enhance public space, and support ecological connectivity. The restoration of the Avon River corridor is a central component of the plan, integrating rain gardens, bioswales, and native plantings to improve flood resilience and ecological health. Importantly, the plan respects and integrates Maori cultural values, particularly Kaitiakitanga, the principle of environmental guardianship. This cultural foundation ensures that restoration is not only ecological but also social and spiritual. Christchurch demonstrates how nature-based planning can support post-disaster recovery by enhancing resilience, restoring ecological systems, and strengthening community identity. In summary, designing with nature shifts urban planning toward using natural systems as active partners in creating resilient, healthy, and equitable cities. This lecture introduced biophilic design, blue-green infrastructure, and urban metabolism, showing how they work together as a cohesive nature-based planning strategy. We highlighted the value of human-nature connection, multifunctional infrastructure, and embedding ecological thinking into urban form. International examples such as Vienna and Christchurch demonstrate that nature-based design is practical and effective when supported by strong policy and community involvement. Ultimately, designing with nature is both an environmental and social commitment. In the next topics of this module, we will explore nature-based solutions in greater depth and examine how these ideas are applied in real urban contexts.